Whistle While You Work, an investigation on SEL and DI by Zena Karnasov. This is for National University under Dr. Hansen's class for ITL 694. Since the Every Student Act of 2015, requiring that all schools ensure that students are receiving a quality education, um, Carol Ann Thompson, an American educator, states that most of the weight in connecting the gaps to achieve these academic results is falling upon the teachers. With that said, the American Every Student population includes students with difficulties like autism, 120% increase in the last 10 years, ADHD, with an estimated 11% of students being diagnosed. We have students coming from low income families or below poverty living situations where 51% qualify for free or reduced price meals, and 3% of the student population, which is 1.4 million students, actually living on the streets and being homeless. And 18% of those students have one or more disabilities. But we do have students with identified disabilities overall, and that's 62% of students, which spend 80% of their time in our general education classrooms. Carol Ann Thompson highlights those numbers do not include if the children's parents are ill or divorced or dealing with any other variables that could be impacting their learning. So, the pressure of having to boost test results to meet achievement benchmarks and feeling unsupported as they do creates unbearable stress on teachers that can have devastating impact on their mental health and well-being, which is stated by Lisa Curry. Lisa Curry is the founder of the Ripple Kindness Project, and she also found that 40 to 50% of new teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years of teaching. A study called Stress induced changes in human decision making are reversible, shows us, though, that chronic stress directs responsible decision making strategies towards habits rather than goals, which impedes our ability to adapt and change. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that bad classroom experiences from the students' and the teachers' perspectives can lead to poor attendance, academic results, and mental health. So, how can we confirm that there's light at the end of the tunnel to keep teachers' efficacy high while addressing social emotional needs and simultaneously offering equitable education opportunities for all? Well, Carol Ann Thompson, an American educator and author, speaker who also is known for her work with differentiated instruction, states that differentiation is the key and it's responsive teaching rather than one size fits all teaching. But despite the fact that the Fordham Institute released a report in 2008 stating 83% of teachers nationwide believe differentiation is somewhat difficult or very difficult to implement, instructional coach Lisa Westman highlights a good question is watching our students struggle because their needs are not being met easier than differentiating? That is a good question. Lisa Westman, she's equipped with 12 years experience in teaching middle school gifted humanities, ELA, and social studies for the Skokie School District of suburban Chicago, clarifies the 5 misconceptions regarding differentiation to help teachers feel empowered and less overwhelmed with practicalities, which I feel like are important to highlight. Number one being that differentiation doesn't mean that a teacher must plan something for every student. We can use pre-assessments, formal assessments, grouping, regrouping. So differentiation can be achieved with the help of using the Common Core State Standards, the NGSS, and the C3 framework in the class planning process, paired with consideration of the students' answers to targeted questions, reacting to the standards and their personal interests. Number two is that differentiation. Number two, differentiation isn't grouping according to reading level and assessing some text as people think. It's compacting the curriculum for the higher achievers and scaffolding for students who need that additional support. Misconception number three is that differentiation involves a combination of data types, not just one, but it involves formative assessments, and effective academic data are the way. The number fourth misconception, differentiation is quality over quantity. Like Richard Cash said, differentiation is challenging a student just even so that neither impedes learning if it's too hard or causes apathy if it's too easy or redundant. The final misconception is that you can recognize the factory model of teaching is not appropriate for today's learners. Take small steps with ease as you learn to partner with your colleagues and build a PLN plan to find the right recipe for your class. Differentiation, it may never be easy, but it will always be worth the effort. So, this is where the marriage of differentiated instruction with the core competencies of SEL comes into play because we do know that it is challenging our teachers. But when teachers can use self management skills through SEL to reduce their stress, their brain is in a position to make more considered and less biased decisions. And students who participate in SEL programs are proven to increase their performance by 11 percentile points. So, if we know an increased emotional awareness and intelligence promotes positive character traits such as empathy and kindness, which help foster healthy relationship skills for students, but are experienced and new teachers willing to put forth the effort for DI to make the connections with SEL to offer a more equitable and higher functioning curriculum, which in return will preserve their self efficacy. Well, what I've done is I've created a qualitative study and I gave a survey to 8 teachers with the following questions, as you can see. I asked them about the social emotional competencies and if they've ever used them. I asked if they ever learned about differentiated instruction. I also wanted to know how many years they had been teaching so I can compare that type of information. I wanted to know if they've ever thought about leaving the profession for a stress leave, and I gave them some food for thought about watching students struggle because their needs are not met, being easier than differentiating. And if they thought a differentiated misconception is that a student must have a custom curricular. However, it is found that DI is really offering a student-centered curriculums through scaffolding and offering flexibility assessments. And are they aware that SEL competencies can be utilized to benefit them as teachers in support of a differentiated classroom? All right, next I have my data results, and you can see I've made 2 bar graphs here. One for my questions, have you heard of social emotional learning? And the other one, have you heard of differentiated instruction? And then I've also compared and grouped according to the number of years of teaching experience. For the next data results page, I have asked the teachers, have you ever considered changing your career due to work-related stress? And again, I have them grouped according to their years of teaching experience. And with the last circle graph, are you aware that social emotional competencies may benefit you as a teacher in support of your differentiated classroom? You can easily see 50% said yes and 50% said no. So let's look at these correlations and what they really mean. We have teachers with 0 to 10 years of teaching experience that are aware of SEL as well as differentiated instruction. And then we also have 3 out of 8 teachers considering leaving the profession due to work-related stress. So that's 37.5%. We have 4 out of 8 teachers that were overall aware that SEL can help them with their differentiated instruction, and some of those, they might even be already using it, which we learned in um, some of the comments that they made. But earlier in this presentation, I had asked, we know an increased emotional awareness and intelligence promotes positive character traits such as empathy and kindness, which help foster healthy relationships for skills for students, but are experienced and new teachers willing to put in the effort to put forth DI and make the connections with social emotional learning to offer a more equitable and higher level functioning curriculum in which return preserve their self-efficacy? And the answer is yes. And I've got that answer because specifically there was someone who made the comment. DI actually made me want to stay as it gave me something to work on and pave the way for school. I use SEL with DI all the time to build a welcoming class. And that came from one of my responses of teachers that had been teaching for 9 years now. So, in conclusion, unfortunately, my research is inconclusive and it needs further surveying due to the fact that there's flaws in my survey, which allows the teachers to answer ambiguously. Some teachers' answers went on tangents, and others did not follow the directions. Not even in question 4, if you notice on my survey paper, it asks them to list the social emotional competencies that they're using, and I listed all 5 of them, and I only had like 2 teachers actually do that, whereas others just expressed ways that they were doing social emotional learning, but they didn't specifically circle those competencies for me, which I was what I wanted. So Overall, there is an awareness that DI and SEL simultaneously utilized successfully by teachers is possible, and as it's happening by teachers who are